Do you value me? Can I trust you? And will you help me? Those are basically a modification of John Maxwell's 3 questions about influence. And my evangelism story involves putting myself in places where I can treat people with value. They learn to trust me, and they realize that I will help them no matter what they ask about. This particular story is about being a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. I'm an older guy, and one of my very young friends is an accomplished Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, and I joined his gym and just kind of hang out and have been able to influence a lot of young people. They come and ask me advice about relationships. Here's a dude, obviously I'm a senior citizen, and he's still walking around and does this stuff. He may know something about life. And so I offer those guys help in any way that I can. And then it eventually turns into, what makes a guy like you treat people like me the way you do? And well, there's a guy named Jesus. Yeah. And I try to start it out that way. And in fact, it got to the point where I was doing some consulting with some of the professional grapplers and wrote a book called Grappling with Life, Controlling Your Inside Space. And it's designed to get them thinking about not controlling the inside space of a wrestling match, but your head, your heart, and your soul. And it eventually ends with the last principle in controlling your inside space is, above all things, guard your heart. And we have a real good heart issue talk. And it's a very simple tool. It's not super biblical. It's just, here's something that's practical and helpful. And that's one of my favorite evangelism stories.
Awesome. Tell us about yourself. What's your name? Where are you from? And an interesting fact, which already sounds like the jiu-jitsu is something.
Well, I'm Lonnie Jones. I've lived in Huntsville, Alabama since 1986. Started as a full-time youth and family minister, went into private practice as a licensed professional counselor in 98. I have a small counseling and consulting business. Avid outdoorsman, like to do lots of weird recreational stuff. Most interesting thing, I think, is that I'm a chaplain with the local police department and been assigned to their SWAT team for 29 years.
Nice, man. You talked about being present, being there, at the jiu-jitsu studio. And what are some things that you found that you could pass on to people listening they could do in their lives effective?
One of the things that happened to me years ago is a lady called to ask me about my business. And so she had said she found me on the internet, and I was combining counseling with a challenge course. I do some adventure-based therapy, rock climbing and rappelling kind of stuff, and wanted to know how I combine the two things. And we talked maybe 30 minutes. And as we started to hang up, instead of saying, have a blessed day or thank you, she said, what can I pray for you? And it caught me off guard. And I told her a deep secret. My daughter had just left for college. I was a little worried about her. And I said, and here's this total stranger, and I'm pouring my heart out to her about my daughter. And so I sit in restaurants a lot of times, and when the girl brings you the food, you say, hey, I'm going to pray for this food before I eat it. Is there something I can pray for you? And they'll sit down beside you and say, I'm having this struggle, or my aunt is doing this, or I'm trying to finish my degree. And you've already told them, hey, I value you. I'm interested in you. And I talk to Jesus on a regular basis, or I talk to God and through Jesus on a regular basis. And you've opened the door for them to say, where do you worship? Where do you go to church? What is your faith tradition? I think that's an easy, practical thing, is just praying with people and just asking them, what can I pray for you? Is the way the lady from New York City worded it to me. And I use that in a lot, and just simply said, hey, what can I pray for you? And these people will sit down and tell you their secrets. And then my wife, when she prays for people now, will type out the text and send it to them and say, this is what I've prayed for you today.
Oh, that's good.
And that is really powerful. Some of my friends who aren't raised in the tradition that I'm in will keep those prayers in their phones and say, I still have my prayer. And I repeat, almost like a mantra, but they're still repeating words that I said to God, and God will recognize and remember that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really good. For those of you listening, at first you're going to think it's hard, right? When you're sitting there and the waitress comes or the waiter, but go for it this week. Give it a go. Try that out. And then I like the idea of texting them, because you also get the phone number of the person you want to follow up, or they can always know who to go to for prayers, because the prayer's on there.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you got any other ones for us that you can think of?
You and I, before the broadcast, were talking about a thing that I call significant obscurity.
Right.
And significant obscurity is not, it's the idea, I don't have to change the world. I just have to change my world.
Right.
And so I show up in people's lives with, oh, here's some guys out in the front yard moving a couch. I'll stop and say, hey, can I help you move a couch? Or here's a guy stuck in a ditch and I've got ropes in my car. Or Here's somebody that you see struggling with whatever. And I think that we see a lot of opportunities. When Jesus said, go and make disciples, the people who know Greek better than I do say that that's an aorist participle. And it means as you are going about. It means stop what you're doing and go over here. It means in your process of going. So where you pump your gas, where you buy your groceries, where your kid plays soccer, the houses that you jog by, just be present in that life. There may not be 50 people who know me, but the 50 people who know me are going to be affected by knowing me. Significant obscurity.
What's one soul worth? If you're right with God and you're going to go to heaven and someone isn't, and they turn and they get right with God, then what's that value? That's priceless, isn't it?
You can't put a value on it at all.
No. And that's what Jesus did with the Good Samaritan, didn't he? He saw the example of someone who didn't pass by a holy man doing his holy work, but it was a guy who saw the need and filled it. So I love that. So this week focusing on that. Any others you got? We usually do 1 to 3. If you got one more.
What I have found out is that responding to people for what we call attention, belonging, and support. So if you know who your neighbors are and you make them feel like they belong, that they're valued by you, and then whatever's going on in their life, whether it's a tragedy or a triumph, you celebrate with them or you sit with them in silence as they go through it. And if you can give the people in your immediate circle attention, belonging, and support, you go a long way to opening the doors for evangelism. The people who are influential in my life, the people that I do business with and buy cars from and all that kind of stuff, didn't start out with, hey, this is what I do for a living. It was, hey, what can I do to help you? And then we had a connection and we became friends. And I go to them when I have those needs. And I think if we live consistently, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control are attributes, not activities. When we have those things in our lives, people are drawn to us and they want to know what's different about us.
Really why they're drawn to us is because Jesus' example is living through us, right?
Absolutely.
When they're attracted to you as a Christian, it's because they're attracted to Jesus.
The other part is when you read, the story when Jesus said, I was hungry and you fed me, I was thirsty. It's as important as letting people see Jesus in me. I've got to see Jesus in other people. And if this were Jesus, would I walk by him? Would I drive by him? Would I ignore him? Would I judge him for the sign that says we'll work for food? If it were Jesus, if I can see Jesus in everybody, they'll see Jesus in me.
That's awesome. Yeah. Love your neighbor as yourself, right? He said, love others as I have loved you. And John, he made a new command. Love others as I have loved you.
And he said, and this will be the standard for identification.
That's right.
They'll know you're my disciples when you have love for one another.
That's ID. That's our ID, man. We wear Jesus' love is our ID. You got any more stories for us? So you've listed, text somebody, pray for somebody, like a waitress or someone that you come in contact with if you're praying for your food. And then we also have be present, help people. Don't walk by people. Be there and serve. And what do you got? You got any more stories or something you could share about your experience?
And don't be afraid to ask people about God or about church. We ran into a guy, my climbing partner and I were climbing in Mount Yonah. And as we were coming off of Mount Yonah, we ran into a guy who like 83 years old, walking up the mountain by himself. And we stopped and talked with him and got the local postmaster to deliver a package to him. We made him a little gift. I make these little men out of rope. And I made him a rope guy with a hiking staff and put on a piece of driftwood and sent it to him with, hey, I enjoyed the fact that you're traveling to the top of Mount Yonah. Tell me about your walk with Christ. Are you a Christian? Have you been baptized? Tell me about your family, your rock climbing friends that you met in Georgia. And he called me. He called me on the phone and said, I appreciated the sentiment as much as I did the gift. And as an outdoorsman, we do this crazy thing called bow fishing. You shoot fish with a bow. And it's very difficult because the fish are underwater and it refracts the light and the fish aren't where you think they are. And the boat's moving and the fish are moving. And you take people for the first time and they wait on a perfect shot. Well, the guy that we fish with says you're 100% guaranteed to miss a fish you don't shoot at. You're 100% guaranteed not to influence somebody you don't talk to.
That's right.
The worst thing that can happen is they tell you mind your own business. And the best thing that can happen is you start a conversation.
Yeah. And they want to learn about Jesus, right? You got nothing to lose. Jesus said you'll be persecuted. That's expected. Like it'll happen. If it happens, they rejoiced. The disciples got beat and they were happy about it.
And when you think about persecution and you put it on the grand scheme of things, I with my experience with the police last week, I got tased for the first time. It's 50,000 volts, but it lasts for 5 seconds. And if you can ever remember that this only lasts for 5 seconds, it's a mist, it's a vapor, it's water spilled on the ground. I don't care if I get persecuted. It's 5 seconds. And then the rest of it.
Let's be the ones putting that volt out, man. Let's put that electricity out into the world.
More light than heat. This was more heat than light.
That's right. That's right. As we get to the close, we keep the show nice, short, and sweet so we can get people out there on the street or wherever they are, in the workplace, wherever they are. Let's excited about it. Let's get you motivated. We've heard today that life is a vapor, that it's only a few seconds. And I know into my life, Lonnie, I'm gonna say I wish I talked to more people. Guarantee. So I'm motivated by this now because this week I can think about if we go out somewhere and I see somebody and sometimes you feel that I should pray for this person. I should talk to him about something. I'm going to take that step, right? Take that step and say, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do it. Now, have you ever been beat up for praying for somebody?
No, sir.
Yeah, but Satan likes to put in our head that we're going to get beat up. They're going to yell at you. They're going to yell this crazy stuff. And you know what? I've never had, like Jesus said in the Bible, you won't be tempted more than you can handle. And God's with you.
Well, what's the worst thing that could happen? If I got beat up, if I got put in jail, if I got dog bit, what if they lose their soul?
Right.
That's the worst thing that can happen. And
right.
If I don't talk, they won't listen. And once I talk, what they do, some people smell death, some people smell life.
Right.
I'm in charge of the aroma. I'm not in charge of how you interpret it. Some people smell the sacrifice they're required to make. They don't like that. Some people smell the sacrifice that was made for them, and it's beautiful. It lures them in for more.
What's the worst could happen, Lonnie? We die on a cross, just like Jesus.
Absolutely.
And what did Jesus do? He changed the world, man. He changed the world. And he said, take up our cross and follow him. Worst case for us, we die on a cross. We live forever with Jesus, with the God in heaven.
That's right.
That's awesome, Lonnie.
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Right now, you listen to this podcast, this show. It's been 15 minutes. You can go right now in the next 5 minutes to do something. Even if it's call a friend, email a friend, text somebody, ask if they can pray. You can do it right now. Awesome. Thanks, Lonnie, for being on the show.
Well, man, it's been good to talk to you. Nice to meet you. Good luck in your work and blessings in your service down in New Zealand.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Be Brave. The world right now is a crazy place, and sharing the love of God is the most important thing we can do right now. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit up gobebrave.org. Remember, the love of God is the most powerful force in the universe. Learn how to love like Jesus. See you next time.